and I'm going to mute everybody once we get going. Although if everybody behaves, I needn't mute everybody. So perhaps I'll leave us unmuted, but if you know it's noisy in your house, you might want to mute yourself. Okay, who's bought a reading or a poem about summer? Is that most people? Oh, I've got a visual aid from Heather and Doreen. Sandra, did you have your hand up?
Me, yeah.
Pippa, yes. No, I'm just looking at the screen all at once. Okay, who's going to go first then? Pippa, you seem very keen.
Sorry, I was trying to get the link to Monica because she said she hadn't got it and she should have done.
So do you not want to go first then?
No, that's fine.
Okay, what have you got for us?
I got a thank you letter. And it's by Eric Finney, whoever he is. Dear son, just a line to say thanks for this and every day. Your dawns and sunsets are just great, bang on time, never late. On dismal days as grey as slate, behind a cloud you calmly wait till out you sail with cheerful grace to put a smile on the whole world's face. Thanks for those blazing days on beaches, for ripening apples, pears and peaches, for sharing out your noble glow, for sunsets, the loveliest things I know. Please carry on. We know your worth. Love from a friend on planet Earth.
Very
good.
That is lovely. Thank you. Actually, Jen, yours follows on from that, doesn't it? Jen's going to read the hymn, Summer Suns Are Glowing.
Oh, I've done it.
You were going to do that, were you?
Okay.
Okay, you do it.
No.
Why don't you alternate the verses?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
If Jen does verse 1 and 3, you do 2 and 4.
Well, I looked up who'd wrote it, and it's William Walsham Howe, and he was an Anglican bishop and better known as Walsham Howe, Bishop of Bedford, and serving there from 1879 to 1888. And he was a poet and a composer, and he's even got his picture in the National Gallery. And he wrote also for Familiar, For All the Saints, and It Is a Thing Most Wonderful, and many more. And of course, he wrote this, which I love to have this if it's a really summer day, but it can be a bit precarious if you've chosen the hymns the week before and it's pouring with rain.
Yes, a day like this last Sunday. Jen, do you want to say why it's special to you?
Yes, my mother died 5 years ago, and she always said that she had written down what she wanted for her funeral, the readings and the hymns. She said that for years, but the only trouble was she kept on changing her mind what the hymns were. So when she did die, she had written them down, but she kept on adding them, and so there were about 22 hymns. But she died in July, and although this wasn't on her list,
Not this July.
No, 5 years ago.
I know, but they might have thought this July.
Well, I just said 5 years ago. In July 5 years ago. So we knew she liked it. So that was one of the hymns that we did have, and 3 of the others. So it was all special.
So let's alternate with Jen starting and then Dee.
Summer suns are glowing over land and sea. Happy light is flowing, bountiful and free. Everything rejoices in the mellow rays. All earth's 1,000 voices swell the psalm of praise.
God's free mercy streameth over all the world, and his banner gleameth everywhere unfurled. Broad and deep and glorious as the heaven above shines in might victorious, his eternal love.
Lord, upon our blindness thy pure radiance pour. For thy loving kindness make us love thee more. And when clouds are drifting dark across our sky, then the veil uplifting, Father, be thou nigh.
We will never doubt thee, though thy veil thy light. Life is dark without thee, death with thee is bright. Light of light, shine o'er us on our pilgrim way. Go thou still before us to the endless day.
Thank you, both of you. As somebody else is,
That might be mine.
The phone is Hazel's.
okay, so
Yeah.
Hazel's got her name up and a telephone as well. So she's well
Well,
covered.
we can't hear or anything from on the computer.
But you can hear on the telephone.
Can hear on the telephone, yes?
Brilliant. Did you hear Summer Suns Are Glowing?
No.
No, so you've missed that. Never mind. Actually, while I'm talking to you, Hazel, I ran off David's 2 poems.
Yes.
Would one of you like to read one of them? Or do you
Right,
want
yes.
me to? Yeah, right, go on then.
Okay, I'll read Meditation on Psalm 46, verse 10. God says, sit still and see wind sways the grasses, and a bee hugs the knapweed head, its thrusting tongue probing the purple privacy of the flower. And hear leaves rustle around you, and a lark above the field lets fall its liquid song, rippling the silence with melodious shower. Sit still and feel, moss cool and deep beneath your hand. Wind stirs your hair, and where you lean, oak bark lends furrowed comfort to your back. And breathe the air of summer, spiced with eglantine, rich with the subtle fragrance of the field, yet sharp with mayweed, bruised beside the track. Sit still and know yourself at one with wind and field and tree, and be at one with me.
Thank you very much. Is David with you?
Yes?
Yes, David, that's a lovely poem. And that's a lovely verse from the Psalm, of course. But that really kind of brings it to life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Heather Parle, were you waving a children's storybook?
Well, I collected it when I was an adult.
Right.
But guess it could be, yes. It's called Summer Story, and it's the Bramley Hedge collection. And they follow the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And this is Summer Story. So I'm going to cut bits out of it, otherwise we'll be here a little while.
And nobody else will get a go.
Yeah, well, that's right. So should I? We can see a telephone on our screen.
That's because that's Hazel on the telephone.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
yeah. Okay, good. All right, off we go. It's a story about the mice that lived in Bramley Hedge. It was a very hot summer. Each day the sun rose high in the blue sky and the fields shimmered in the heat. The hedgerow was quiet. Many of the mice preferred to stay inside their shady cottages, trying to keep cool. Out of doors, the best place was to be down by the stream. The mice gathered there in the afternoon, sat under under the bank in the shade and dangled their paws and tails in the clear water. On the banks of the stream were the flour and dairy mills, and Poppy Eyebright looked after the dairy stump. Poppy was not fond of hot weather. Her pats of butter began to melt unless they were wrapped in cool dock leaves, and pots of cream had to be hung in the mill pool to keep them fresh. When her work was finished, she would wander by the mill wheel, enjoying the splashes of cool water. The flour mill further down the stream was run by the miller, Dusty Dogwood. He was always covered from head to whiskers with flour dust. He was a cheerful and friendly mouse, like his father, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather, who had all run the mill before him. He loved the fine weather and strolled up and down the stream, chatting to the paddlers and dabblers. His walks took him past the dairy, where he would often see Poppy standing by the stream, looking very pretty. Early in June, Miss Poppy Eyebright and Mr. Dusty Dogwood officially announced their engagement. Everyone along the hedgerow was delighted. Midsummer's Day was picked for the wedding, and preparations were started at once. And Poppy was so sure the weather would hold that they decided that the wedding should take place on the stream. It was the coolest place, and besides, it was very romantic. The wedding day dawned at last. The sky was clear and blue, and it was hotter than ever. The kitchens of Bramley Hedge were full of activity. Cool summer foods were being made. There was cold watercress soup, fresh dandelion salad, honey cream, syllabubs and meringues. The young mice had been up early to gather huge baskets of wild strawberries. In her rooms above the dairy, Poppy dressed carefully. She polished her whiskers and dabbed rose water behind her ears. She peeped at her reflection in the shiny wardrobe and took a deep breath and ran downstairs to join her bridesmaids. Dusty kept his best suit in a basket under the stairs to protect it from the moths. He put it on and tucked a daisy in his buttonhole. The wedding was to take place at midday, and Dusty and Conker, his best man, arrived just in time. Everyone's head turned to watch the bride as she made her way through the buttercups and stepped onto the decorated raft. The old vole, who had been asked to perform the ceremony, stood up and said in a kindly voice, "Poppy Eyebright, do you love Dusty Dogwood? And will you love him and care for him forever and ever?" And Poppy vowed that she would. "And Dusty Dogwood, do you love Poppy? And will you love her and look after her forever and ever?" "I will," said Dusty, and Mrs. Apple blew her nose. Then, in the name of the flowers and the fields, the stars in the sky and the streams that flow down to the sea, and the mystery that breathes wonder into all these things, I pronounce you mouse and wife. All the mice cheered as Dusty kissed his bride, and the bridesmaids threw baskets of petals over the happy couple. And Mrs. Apple wiped a tear from her eye, and the dancing and the feasting began. At last the dusk came, golden and misty over the fields. The blue sky slowly darkened, and the mice began to think about getting home. They walked back through the fields in the evening sun, looking very splendid in their wedding clothes. And what happened to Poppy and Dusty? They slipped quietly away to the primrose woods. The primroses were over, but there, hidden amongst the long grass and ferns, wild roses and honeysuckle, was the cottage in which they had chosen to stay. It was a perfect place for a honeymoon.
Thank you, Heather. I've never read those books, so I now feel suitably indebted.
I have cut quite a little bit of it out, but you had to have those little bits to get the story.
No, that was lovely. Thank you. Who else? Beryl?
Yep. This is a poem. It's not completely about summer, but 2 years ago, David persuaded me to write a poem for a poetry evening, which they had at Fulmerstone Chapel. And if I write poetry, it must rhyme. I can't write it without a rhyme. And so, and the theme for the evening was in the beginning, but this fits in with summer because it's, well, you'll hear it's garden has brought in a lot. Should it be in the beginning or once upon a time, one thing's for sure, my story must rhyme. It all started many, many years ago when Peter and Thomas and dear little Flo went to stay with their gran and grandpa. Mother took them in her new car. They travelled up hills and over the dale. At last they arrived, and here starts my tale. While Mother and Gran had a nice cup of tea, the children and Grandpa went out to see the chickens and rabbits out in the yard, just as it started to rain very hard. We'll have to shelter in my garden shed. Come, children, follow me, Grandpa said. In the shed they all fitted in. The rain on the roof, it made such a din. Grandpa told the children the next day they could go into the shed to play. But please don't touch things on the shelves, as they might fall down upon yourselves. The three children ran out, keen to explore, to see what they could find behind the shed door. They found a tin which rattled when shook. Oh dear me, lid came off, everything fell in the muck. The tin was full of packets of seeds, flowers, vegetables, and even peas. The children quickly picked them up, but some seeds were left, which they put in a cup. What shall we do with these seeds, they said. Let's throw them into the flower bed. A few weeks later, some strange shoots did appear. Gran said to Grandpa, what's growing out there? Grandpa answered, it looks like veg to me, but how could that happen? How can it be? Well, as time went by, the veg did grow, all nice and neat in a row, were asters and carrots and parsnips too, all mixed together as if they knew. In a few years' time, it would be the norm to have cabbages grow around the lawn, but Grandpa and Grandma never did know how vegetables in the flower garden did grow.
Very good. Very good. I'll read a poem that comes from this book. It's called Read Me a Poem.
Oh, yeah.
When my children were young, and before I read them sort of full-length bedtime stories, before that, we used this book and we read poems, 2 or 3 every evening. And we had our favourite ones. And this is a favourite one. It's called Duck's Ditty by Kenneth Grahame, who wrote Wind in the Willows. All along the backwater, through the rushes tall, ducks are a-dabbling, up tails all. Duck's tails, drake's tails, yellow feet a-quiver, yellow bills all out of sight, busy in the river. Slushy green undergrowth, where the roach swim. Here we keep our larder, cool and full and dim. Everyone for what he likes. We like to be heads down, tails up, dabbling free. High in the blue above, swifts whirl and call. We are down a dabbling, up tails all.
Oh, that's nice.
And that poem, it has helped me in later life to know when there were swifts in the sky to distinguish them from swallows or house martins, because that poem says swifts whirl and call, and swifts never land, only to nest. So they whirl around in the sky and they call to each other constantly. So it's enabled me to recognise when they're overhead.
I used to read it to mine.
Say again?
Sorry.
I used to read the slack poem to my children. I love it. It's beautiful.
Rosemary, have you got anything for us tonight?
Well, today I got up my first early potatoes.
Oh.
And so I thought I'd read my potato poem.
Oh. Good.
You do? Okay, jolly good.
It was about me and him. We had a wonderful gardener called Lord Charles, who was a very, very lovely Norfolkman, a man of very, very few words, and very silent. And they don't make them like that anymore. He's gone, but he was wonderful. And I used to help him in the school holidays. In the summer holidays, we used to dig up the potatoes together, ready for the winter. And so this was about one event. They flower and flop, and so I know the potato crop is ready now for harvesting. Creamy white from the dark soil, they are just right to roast or boil. But as we dig along the row, a sturdy plant, green and strong, no floppy stems or yellowing leaves. This one's not ready yet, I say. Let's leave it for another day. No point you doing that. You shake your head. That's refused to give itself, you said. In goes the fork, and firm and sound, as on the day it hit the ground, the seed potato lay, and you were right. There was no baby one in sight. And long ago, another said that if there's grain to make our bread, a seed cannot remain intact, but has to die to bear its fruit, and that's a fact. It's funny how biology can teach us good theology.
Oh, very good.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, is there anyone else who hasn't read us anything, who wants to? Sandra and Aileen and Kathy. Okay, let's go in that order. Sandra first.
Okay, this is an extract from the beginning of Cider with Roses by Laurie Lee. And it's when the family arrive at their new home in the Cotswolds, right at the start of the book, when Laurie Lee is just 3 years old. That was the day we came to the village in the summer of the last year of the First World War, to a cottage that stood in a half-acre of garden on a steep bank above a lake. A cottage with 3 floors and a cellar, and a treasure in the walls, with a pump and apple trees and strawberries, rooks in the chimneys, frogs in the cellar, mushrooms on the ceiling, and all for 3 and 6pence a week. I don't know where I lived before then. My life began on the carrier's cart, which brought me up the long, slow hills to the village and dumped me in the high grass and lost me. I had ridden wrapped up in a Union Jack to protect me from the sun, and when I rolled out of it and stood piping loud among the buzzing jungle of that summer bank, then I feel was I born. And to all the rest of us, the whole family of 8, it was the beginning of a life. But on that first day, we were all lost. Chaos was come in cartloads of furniture, and I crawled the kitchen floor through forests of upturned chair legs and crystal fields of glass. We were washed up in a new land and began to spread out, searching its springs and treasures. The sisters spent the light of that first day stripping the fruit bushes in the garden. The currants were at their prime, clusters of red, black, and yellow berries, all tangled up with wild roses. Here was bounty the girls had never known before, and they darted, squawking from bush to bush, clawing the fruit like sparrows. Our mother, too, was distracted from duty, seduced by the rich wilderness of the garden so long abandoned. All day she trotted to and fro, flushed and garrulous, pouring flowers into every pot and jug she could find on the kitchen floor. Flowers from the garden, daisies from the bank, cow parsley, grasses, ferns and leaves. They flowed in armfuls through the cottage door until its dim interior seemed entirely possessed by the world outside, a still green pool flooding with honeyed tides of summer.
Mm.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm. I keep meaning to reread that book, so you encouraged me to. Thank you, Sandra.
Okay.
Aileen?
Well, I decided to be different and not read a poem, so I brought a visual aid.
Ah, that looks like one of those tiles that goes on the wall.
It's enamelled. It's an enamelled picture, but I just wondered if anyone realised where it was.
Take it back.
Blakeney, Wells.
If you look at the boat, that might give you a clue.
Oh, look at what?
IH.
It's not.
Give us another clue.
Ipswich.
Yes. Pippa said Ipswich. It's Aldborough. So and the reason I bought it is because summer meant we could go to the seaside. And living in Bedford, we were so far from the coast, we tended to go to Suffolk, to either Felixstowe or sometimes Aldborough. And for Roger and I, it became a very special place. And if you walk along that road, which is right by the beach, you come across this little house, which is called Fantasia. And I have happy memories of going perhaps just for a day and buying the fish fresh off the beach and taking it home in a cool box. So it's great memories. But we never actually stayed there. It was always a day trip. So when the first anniversary of his death was coming up and I was dreading it, I took myself off to Aldborough and I stayed in, I can't remember the name of the hotel now, but it's on the front and it's where Joyce Grenfell used to stay. And it was because it was July, it happened to be quite a cool July. I walked and everybody was very friendly and I just relived all those lovely memories. But I did something that was slightly different by actually staying in a hotel. So Aldborough, and this is actually Catherine's, which I still got them all because she hasn't got room for them. But Fantasia is this tiny little house, one up, one down, which you can see as you walk along by the beach.
And it was in that picture you showed, wasn't it?
No, it's a bit further on. I think it's just a bit down that way.
And is that normally hanging on a wall somewhere?
No, this one just stands up. And it was only the fact I happened to be in a stuff and this picture sort of hit me and I thought that's Aldborough. I've got to have it, and I think I paid about £10 for it. So it's very special, and everybody who comes in and sees it in the dining room sort of says, "Oh, where's that?" Catherine spotted it straight away and said, "Oh, Aldborough."
Good. Well, good to have something different. Thank you. Kathy, what have you got?
I've got a poem by Robert Louis Stevenson, and it's about the gardener. The gardener does not love to talk. He makes me keep the gravel walk. And when he puts his tools away, he locks the door and takes the key. Away behind the currant row, where no one else but cook may go, far in the plots I see him dig, old and serious, brown and big. He digs the flowers, green, red and blue, nor wishes to be spoken to. He digs the flowers and cuts the hay, and never seems to want to play. Silly gardener, summer goes, and winter comes with a pinching toes. When in the garden bare and brown, you must lay your barrow down. Well now, and while the summer stays, to profit by those garden days, oh, how much wiser you would be to play at Indian walls with me.
That's nice.
Lovely, thank
Yeah,
you.
didn't I?
It's all right.
Yeah.
Has everybody who wanted to have a first go, have a go?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Hazel, do you want to read the second one of David's?
I can do.
It's called The Farming Day, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's hear that.
Let me just find it. Float away.
Have you got it?
Yeah. I've just lost the page.
Don't worry, we can come back.
In the excitement of trying to get on the...
Don't worry, I've got it here actually, but I wouldn't probably read it properly.
I can't give it to you, Dave, because I can't find it. Can you do it without it? He thinks he can do it without the words.
Okay.
I think I can, if that's the one, I'm thinking of.
Have a go then.
Yeah. Here in the dawning, as the sun rises.
Mist in the valley.
Sorry. I'll find it. Mist in the valley. Yeah, here in the dawning, as the sun rises, mist in the valley, light on the hill, larks jubilate in the lightning heaven. Over the fields that lie tranquil and still. Warmly the sun climbs in the morning's blue mountain. Rise from our slumbers, we once again trouble the world with internal combustion, to plough or to sow or to harvest the grain. Heat of the noontide heightens our fever. Good crop protection our husbandry needs. Evening will find us still fighting the fungus. Darkness will fall on our war with the weeds. But in the morning, at the sun's rising, peace in the valley, joy on the hill. Ere the world wakes to its work and its worry, visions of Eden come to us still.
Mm. Thank you, David, very much.
That's good.
It's very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Has anyone else got a second one?
I have.
Beryl, what's your second one?
Well, this is from a book, Just a Thought, and it's Inspirational Thoughts, Scriptures and Poems by Joy Hedges. I'll just have to find it, but that's about when you was talking about the swifts. This is about, find it in a minute. I had it here and
Oh, you've got the same trouble.
yeah. But that's about, I think, nope, where are we?
Jen's going to say something whilst you find it, Beryl.
Okay, and I'll find it, yeah.
Some years ago in Eastbourne on a summer's day, the BBC came to do a Songs of Praise recording on the bandstand at Eastbourne, obviously right on the seafront. And it was all lovely and everything happened as it should. And the hymn that finishes about the crystal sea, to sing hymns right by the sea is just amazing. But what I wanted to tell you, because it was summer and so on, they recorded all the hymns and Ali Jones was the presenter. And they said, thank you for this, but we now need you to be really quiet while Alid records one of his, the speechy bits he does. So we were all quiet and he recorded it. And the producer man said, thank you very much. You were all very quiet. And Alid said his thing well, but we've got to do it again because the seagulls were making too much noise.
Can't keep them quiet.
And were they quiet the second time?
I can't remember that.
Was I there?
I think you were.
Yeah, I think I was there. I don't remember the seagulls. You found it, Beryl?
Yes, it's called Amazing Birds. and she's based it on the verse Psalm 84, verse 3. Even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may have her young, a place near your altar, O Lord Almighty, my King and my God. And she says, our beautiful swallow with its long stream tail and steel blue chestnut and white plumage winters in South Africa, but makes the tremendously long journey of 6,000 miles to the UK to breed, often using the same nest it has occupied for many years. Swallows begin to arrive in ones or twos at the end of March, hence the age-old saying, one swallow does not make a summer. The majority come in mid or late April and leave in autumn, when they can be seen gathering with their young on telephone wires. Not until the 19th century did European explorers begin to discover the miracle of swallows' migration, increasingly confirmed by scientific ringing, which in England began in 1909. The bird weighs about the same as a pound coin, measures 7.5 inches, and lives on flying insects. However, when a swallow crosses the Sahara Desert, it has to survive 700 miles with little food or water, or fly hundreds of miles further by circumventing the desert. When traversing the Mediterranean Sea, it may get shot at by hunters, although this is illegal. The English Channel presents the last major challenge because of changeable weather. The migrant builds nests of damp mud and grasses lined with feathers on ledges and rafters, often in farm-out buildings. Females lay 4 to 5 eggs, which hatch in a fortnight. The nestlings can fly in 3 weeks. 2, sometimes 3 broods are raised. Like the swallow, we are all on a journey. For some of us, it is harder than for others, but we will not discover true peace until we find our journey's end in God, the Father of us all.
Nice, wasn't it?
Yeah. Thank you. It's interesting to hear a bit more about swallows.
Yeah.
Did I see 1 or 2 people going to find other things? Rosemary, did I see you do that?
Well, I got I thought of it from A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's everyone talking, it's the fairies and the wood and everything, but I always loved this bit. I know a bank whereon the wild thyme blows, where oxlips and the nodding violet grows, quite over canopied with luscious woodbine, with sweet musk roses and with eglantine. There sleeps Titania some time of the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight. And there the snake throws her enamel skin, weed wide enough to wrap a fairy in. And it goes on, but I always think that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just lovely.
Go on.
Well, no, I mean, it's just Shakespeare, and I just love Shakespeare, and it's just so incredibly beautiful. Through the forest I have gone, but Athenian found I none, on whose eyes I might approve this flower's force in stirring love. That's how they wipe the magic fairy flower liquid and make them see what they want to. I mean, it's all about magic. It's just fun. I just love it. I saw it in Regent's Park once, and it was absolute magic. I just love it. Sorry.
Is that your favourite Shakespeare play?
Oh, no. I wouldn't like to say which one it is. I love them all. I mean, well, no. There's 1 or 2 I don't like. Remember 37 murders on the stage in one performance. That was too much for me.
That is a bit excessive.
Midsummer.
That was definitely not on that one. But no, I used to go every week when I was living in the Midlands. I used to go every week to Stratford and just drink Shakespeare. It's self-indulgence. Leave it.
Pippa, were you going to get something else?
Yes. Oh, hang on. Yes, I've got one from a book called The Witnesses and Other Poems by Clive Sansom, which I found on my shelf amongst my poetry books. And it's called Swallows. Where I lie, watching my daily square of sky, curving, slanting through the hours, I see the inconstant swallows fly, from dawn till end of light, in, out of sight, scoring upon the distant blue their pizzicato flight. rising, falling, reeling there on mid-intoxicated air, hunting with crossbow wing and body swift and spare. The world above the eaves, where an interminable pattern weaves of wing blades flashing in the sun like fluttering aspen leaves, sweeping, diving all day long, an eager, tireless throng, scattering upon the sun-bright air their agitated song, cleaving each other's paths until, as shadows cross the hill, they rise lark high with easy spiraled flight and voices sharp and shrill, curling and floating far beyond the eye from where I lie, as rooted as the garden trees, watching my square of sky.
Mm.
That's nice.
Lovely.
Thank you. I've got one to round things off, but a last call for anybody else. Heather, had you got something else?
No, I
She's
just went to
looking,
get a
but she
book,
can't
but
find-
no, I haven't.
I've got one more.
Oh, well, Rosemary, I think we'll let you have one more.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven's shine, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines by chance, or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
That's nice.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that another of your favourites?
That's one of my favourite sonnets. That's a
Yeah.
sonnet.
Okay, I'm going to finish off with another children's poem, but I didn't read this to my children. It's a book,
The Little Red Bus.
The Little Red Bus, by Miss Reed. Now, Miss Reed wrote a lot of books about some villages, and one of them was called Thrush Green, and one was called Fair something. My mum read all those books and had them all, and then I read them too. But I don't know why I know about the poems of Miss Reed. It might be because of my mother. But I bought the book to read at women's fellowships and things like that, where one might do poems. And I'd like to read you, let me just see, and I'll show you the pictures as well. I'd like to read you a poem called No Hat. And I'm assuming this is a summer poem because the sort of hat that Polly didn't have is a summer hat. So here is a hat and here is a hat. I won't show you all the pictures. One hat is Betty's and one hat is Pat's. But look, here is Polly and she has no hat. No hat, says Betty. No hat, says Pat. Polly, you can't go about like that. No hat for me, for I like the fun of shaking my hair in the wind and the sun. You may like to feel the wind and the sun, but to go in the rain with no hat is no fun. No hat for Polly, I say it again. No hat in the wind or the sun or the rain. No hat for Polly. No hat is that plain. But one morning a letter is flat on the mat. Look, it says Betty and Polly and Pat. And look, here's a crown. But what can this mean? Says Betty, this letter has come from the Queen.
Please wear a hat.
What is that? Here at the end it says, please wear a hat. Look, Polly, says Betty. Look, Polly, says Pat. For tea with the Queen, you must wear a hat. There's no time to buy one. We'll make one instead, with flowers from the garden and straw from the shed. They sit in the garden, all three of them plait the straw from the shed for Polly's new hat. It takes all the morning to make a long plait. There's no time for dinner, says Polly to Pat. For look at the clock. It says it is 1 and there's sewing to do before my hat's done. They start at the crown of the hat. It is fun to see the hat grow from the plaits they have done. Look, Polly, says Betty. Look, Polly, says Pat. The crown's done and now here's the brim of your hat. I'll look for the flowers, says Polly, to trim the crown of my hat while you do the brim. Look, poppies and daisies, red, white and green, to make a plain hat fine enough for the Queen. And now it is done. It's a love of a hat. And you look simply fine, say Betty and Pat. You've made it so well, says Polly, that's why. But look at the clock. It says 3. We must fly. By 4 they are tidy and clean for the Queen. They go to the party in red, white and green. Says Polly, the rain and the wind and the sun are all very well, but a hat can be fun. And Pat looks at Betty and Betty at Pat. At last, Polly's tidy and pleased with her hat. The Queen wears her crown. She bows to the tea as they curtsy and says to them, do have some tea. She looks very kindly at Betty and Pat. That's a Polly, she says. What a love of a hat! It's the prettiest here, says the Queen. And that's that.
Oh, that's lovely.
I love that.
Yeah, good.
Okay, everybody, thank you for being here. I've recorded it, so I'll put it on the website in due course, and other people can listen when they realise what they've missed. I thought we'd just have an occasional one in August to keep us going, and we'll have another occasional one sometime.
Oh, thank you. Thank
And it
you.
feels right.
Yeah,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Thank you, everyone, for your love reading.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'm trying to end it. Oh, there we are.